Imagine going to a museum. Imagine riding on a train. Imagine seeing an aeroplane land. These are things that we would all take for granted every single day, but so many young people don't get to see these sorts of sights. Today, I'll be talking to the CEO of Hull and East Yorkshire Children's University, Rose James. This charity is set up to give these children experiences. It's set up to raise their aspirations. It's set up to show them what's possible out there and what they could be when they grow up. This is Shifting Views with Willis. So, Rose James, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's summer, so the kids are off school. Mm-hmm. Are you busier now because it's summer? Does your charity have an influx of things that you're doing because it's the summertime?
Yes, so the schools programme that we do with the majority of the children we work with, that's obviously paused during summer. But we start to do our experiences with the children looked after during the summer, and we also run a summer school as well called Here See You in the holidays. So still very busy.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've had children going to do some craft workshops. Yesterday they were making these amazing tie-dye tablecloths. But we've also got children who are going to do learn about animal care at Gox Hill Meadows and things like that this week. So yeah, still very busy.
Yeah. I suppose it would be good to set some context and get some background. So, what is Hull Children's University? Why is it set up? What are you doing?
So we've actually it's going to be our 30th birthday in 2 years. So we've been around a long time, and we were set up by our founder John Buttrick. He was a teacher at the time, and he realised that there were some children who just didn't have the opportunities that other children had. There was children who didn't have any aspirations, any dreams for the future. And this in turn was affecting them, how they were being academically in school, their focus in school. And so he thought, I'm going to give these children opportunities outside of school to try and, show them what's out there. So he just started very small scale, taking them maybe to sort of see the football or taking them to the ice arena and things like that. And he realised that these experiences, even though they were local and they were small, they were having a really big impact on the children. And unfortunately, John suffered a personal tragedy, lost his son very young, and he decided to leave teaching altogether and in his son's memory start this charity and dedicate his life to giving children more opportunities. So over the years we've just worked with more and more children. We've just worked with, in this last academic year, 13,000 local children, and we've delivered nearly 400 experiences in that time. So we're working with a lot of the children, and the aim is to mainly during the school day, so we take full classes of children out of school, to take them, to give them opportunities and to help them meet people and to see things that they otherwise wouldn't have or wouldn't see because of just the circumstances in which they live. Yeah. And quite often it's stuff that schools are not able to do themselves as well. So we add something extra for those children who need it the most.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing, isn't it? Because when I think about those simple, I've seen some of the experiences you provide for children, and they seem so simple. If you go in visiting a museum or taking a day trip to London or something like that, it's something that pretty much we all do every day. It's just part of our lives. It doesn't seem so exceptional, and yet so many young kids can't even imagine this. No. They've never seen anything like it. They can't even imagine what a big city like London would ever look like because they would just never have that opportunity.
Yes, well, there's lots of children who we meet on a regular basis who they haven't gone more than a mile from their own front door. They don't have the opportunity to, just get on a bus and go somewhere or get on a train. And schools, schools' budgets are becoming tighter and tighter. So for school trips and things, there's a lot less opportunities there for them to organise. And so for us, it's, taking that child who their world is so small because they've only really seen what's around, their local area. And then when that child is transported and they get on a train for the first time and they're seeing all the things that you pass when you're going down to London and all the sounds and then getting off that train in King's Cross, they're just like, what is this place? There was once a child, I'll always remember, we were going down to London on the train and the child said, "Miss, when we get to London, will the roof be on or off?" And it was a rainy day. And I said, what do you mean the roof be on or off? And the child said, well, it's raining, so will the roof come over? And you think this child, their concept of what London is that it's a stadium or something like that.
Yeah.
And so then when they actually see London, we go on the tube, with 30 kids and all of these things, even for an adult, it's overwhelming for the first time. But for a child who have probably not even been into Hull city centre, some of them, never seen the Humber Bridge, it's just unbelievable that they then see this world of opportunity that they've only really seen on TV before, and it's not seen as real to them. Yeah,
it is amazing that, isn't it? So essentially they're associating the capital city of the country with a venue, basically, and that's just because it's what they've seen on the telly.
Yes.
They've seen it on the football or whatever. And so they can't even comprehend it as a place. And I suppose it's because they don't even really get to understand geography in terms of the country, and they only see their household, and you say they've probably not been more than a mile from the house, so maybe they see their household, they see the school, they see the local park that they're close to, but that's probably their world. That is the world in their eyes.
Yeah, and I think when you see things on TV, you could see there's places that you might not have been. And you can appreciate, wow, that place looks amazing. But the actual feeling of being there and actually experiencing it for real. I mean, one of the most shocking things that I found out in the years of working for this charity is that there's children who live in Bridlington who have never been to the beach. And it's free. And it's, sometimes within a mile of where they live. And they've never been to the beach. And someone could read in a book or they could see on the TV about someone talking about the feeling of the sand between your toes, and they can take that in, but when you actually feel the sand between your toes, the feeling of that, it's completely different experiencing it in real life to seeing someone talk about it on the TV or reading it in a book. And of course as well, the children who don't have access to these experiences, even reading in a book, when someone's talking about that, the book almost assumes that the child has had these experiences. You see in sometimes in exams, the way they word things, they are making assumptions that children know where places are or what it feels like to do certain things, when actually a lot of the children won't understand that, and then it could affect the comprehension of even the question. Yeah,
this will blow people's mind, won't it? Because if you live in a seaside town but you've never seen the sea, that's a problem, isn't it? I mean, why is this? What is the problem? Obviously poverty is playing a huge role in this, and deprived backgrounds, and maybe certain extreme circumstances for some families. But it seems to be, this isn't niche to just one or two families. This seems to be a commonplace thing that's happening across the country, and particularly in our region, as you'll be aware of. What is it? What's driving it? Is poverty the big word here?
I think for the likes of the seaside towns, those children who haven't been to the beach and haven't seen the sea, I think it is quite exceptional circumstances of when you realise sometimes the circumstances that these children are growing up in, for those select few, you then realise why maybe someone's not taking them to the beach. It's not just poverty. It's there's struggles within the family. But certainly for, even for children who grow up in Hull, we are a coastal city. It's for us, those children to have never been to the beach, it's been to the Humber, if they don't have access to a car, it's becoming more and more expensive to travel by bus, and sometimes they might have to get multiple buses to go to these places. To then go to the seaside, which is an hour away. It's number one, it's cost, but number two as well, for quite often their parents have never been. So it's quite a daunting thing to actually think, right, what do I need to do? I need to get this bus. I need to go to somewhere that I've never been. I don't know how to navigate. I need to then look at how I then get a bus back. It can be really intimidating for those families. And I think it's sometimes a generational thing as well, where because their parents and their parents before them never did it, it's just not something that anyone's ever done. It's not expected, and it's just not really even on their radar to be going to these places. I agree. It's definitely there's a generational element there, because
I think if you have parents or even grandparents who really haven't seen anything outside of their own life, then essentially you're passing that down to your children and your children don't know any better. And then the only thing that changes that cycle, I guess, is those children being exposed to things outside of that world, outside of the family environment. So obviously the work that you're doing helps that dramatically, because you're sticking them in front of things that they've never seen before and they're blowing their minds. But I suppose if they're seeing it on TV or social media, or their friends go on holiday at school, or whatever it might be, and they're hearing these stories, maybe that's kind of injecting their imagination a little bit, and that's also making them think, oh, I'd like to see that, or I could do that, or imagine if I could go on an aeroplane and fly to Spain for 2 weeks. You know, I guess they're getting these influences from all these places, but often those influences can't ever be realised because they don't either have, as you say, they don't have the money, they don't have the infrastructure, they've got personal circumstances that prevent that from happening. So I guess charities like yours need to exist to enable, just even if it's just a small group, to enable that to happen in your world. And that's why you're set up, I guess. Yes,
because for a lot of the children, especially jobs for the future and things like that, some of them they don't know many jobs that exist, because when you're a child, unless you're exposed to them, you don't know. You know things like astronaut and doctor, policeman, builder, things like that. But for those children, if they only know a handful of jobs, then their concept of the world of work, they might be like, they might have these fantasy careers that they'd like to do, which all children do.
Yeah.
But then it's when they start to really think about what they're good at and recognise what their strengths are, that's when they start to think, oh, well, maybe that's not a career for me, or I don't really know how I would even start to think about going into that career. And then that can be extinguished because of that. Whereas what we want to do is show them so many different options and opportunities and so many different paths that they can take in the future. So then they can actually see that path and think, right, these are the steps I need to take, and it is something that's accessible for me, rather than just thinking, well, being an astronaut, I mean, why would someone from Hull be an astronaut, and I don't even know where to start. Whereas if we say to them, right, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to be, your strengths need to be, this is where you would eventually go to study and things like that. We talk about these things all the time with the children.
You make it real for them.
Yes, it's showing them, this is actually accessible to you, rather than them, because sometimes as well, for children, it could be a job that, for some people who are maybe from more affluent backgrounds, might think, yeah, of course, that is definitely my route I'm going to take, and I'm going to go be this person. But for some children, that is like a complete fantasy job, where they think, actually, realistically, I'm not going to be able to achieve that because of where I'm from. Whereas for another child, it could just be something that they assume, of course I'm going to be that, because of the opportunities that they get. Because children who are from more privileged backgrounds, even just maybe having a parent who is in a high position within a company, that they can then they might know somebody who say, oh, could you just have my child for some work experience? And already those children are already getting those opportunities.
They're already up the ladder.
They're already there. And whereas for children who maybe don't have a parent who works, or or knows anyone who could maybe give them work experience, already that child's on the back foot.
And I think all parents, even if you're from a deprived background, they want the best for their kids. But often I think even the parents just don't know what to tell them, because maybe even in their own self-belief, if the child says, I'd love to fly to space, which seems just so extraordinary, even for that parent, in the back of their mind, they're thinking, that's never going to happen for you, mate. And so they have to find this way of sort of saying, well, yeah, that's possible. Maybe, who knows, one day. But they don't really actually have anything to tell them in terms of, okay, so here's what we could do. How could we address this, So I guess there's a role for other influences there, isn't there? I mean, what role do schools have in this? I'm thinking back when I was a kid. I'm obsessed with aeroplanes, and I always wanted to be a pilot. I still do want to be a pilot secretly. I love aeroplanes. But I remember when I was in high school, and I'd said there was like this careers day, and I said to the teacher, what do you want to do? And I said, I'd love to be a pilot. I'd love to be a pilot. And he said, do you think that's a realistic ambition?
Oh.
And that kind of, I still to this day, nearly 30 years later, it sticks in the back of my mind. I think I would never say that to a kid, ever. I would say, okay, well, how can we look at this? How could we address this? What would you actually need to do? How can we help you get to that point? But, you was kind of in that culture of, look, this is what your place, and you should kind of set your level so high, because it's not likely you're going to go any higher. I think that's probably changed a lot over the years. I think that was maybe more of an 80s, 90s thing. I don't know. But do schools and influencers like that have a role? Or not just schools, maybe churches or any other kind of influence in the child's life? Do they have a role to play to kind of raise those aspirations?
Yes, 100%. I think children being exposed to as many different role models as possible is just something that we're passionate about, and that's why our volunteers play a huge role in what we do, because we encourage volunteers from lots of different backgrounds to come on our experiences and speak to the children and speak about their careers and the different paths that they took in life. But I think in school, I do think it's changed. I think it's, you do hear people saying to children, you can be anything. And we say that to the children as well, but it's important to then back that up with showing them, actually giving them the tools, like you say, and showing them, right, you could go and do an apprenticeship. You could, this is how you could do a startup business. Yeah. You could go to college, you could go to university. We're called Children's University, but we're not about going to university. Yeah. It's important that children do what is right for them, and what and use their talents. Yeah. And yes, I think it's so important, and you remember things that people tell you.
Sure.
And for those children, I always think about the children who maybe don't excel academically, and in school they can quite often feel that their self-esteem's very low, because they think, right, well, I'm not on the top table for this, I'm not the best at this, and they really do sometimes think that they're not good at anything.
Yeah.
And then if they come on an experience outside of school where they're doing something that's completely new, that's hands-on, and someone says to that child, you're really good at that and you could do that when you grow up, that's sometimes the first time that child has felt like they're good at something. And that can just be transformational.
Yeah.
Because then it's like a little fire is lit and they think, this is real, I'm good at this and I could do this and I could make a career out of it.
Yeah.
And then it's really important, as the influential people in their lives, to then nurture that and to show them, right, okay, you're really good at this. Don't just say they're really good at it. If you wanted to do this when you grow up, this is what you could do.
Yeah.
Meet somebody who's in that role.
Yeah.
Find out how they got into it. People take different paths. And also, I think for the children to hear from people who are from similar backgrounds to them, that have made a success of their lives, to show that they can.
There's a knock-on effect as well, isn't there? Because it drives me a little bit insane, this, because if you don't drive aspiration in young people and you don't give them opportunities and you don't nurture their natural talents and their curiosities that they've got, I think later in life, this is why you have problems. I think this is why we have a crime problem, a prison problem, a health problem. All of these things are knock-on effects, because most of these people, I was discussing on a podcast a few weeks ago, and I was saying that you have to tackle things upstream. And later down the line, people aren't born bad. People aren't born criminals. They're a victim of circumstance ultimately. Often that can be poverty. Often that can be other, abuse or any other influences in their life that informs that thing. So you kind of have to go backwards when you look at why are the prisons so overcrowded? Why is this, people behaving in such a way? Why is there so much mental health problems and things like that? And I always think, rather than kind of trying to react to it and like punish people or try and get them medical help, if you used to go much back into childhood and you go, okay, well, at what point was the transition? Where was this period from innocent child, very happy, lovely, doesn't know anything, just curious about the world, to slowly this more jaded kind of version where they start going in different directions because they feel they have no aspiration, they've got nothing, there's nobody helping them, they can only look after themselves and they'll do whatever it is that they need to do. So I think that Is there a massive knock-on effect? Do you feel there's a knock-on effect in terms of what society becomes or what a child becomes if they don't get those opportunities?
Yeah, there is, because, like you say, there's children who, if they haven't been shown what they can achieve and, what their potential could be, I think they do feel frustrated and they look and they think, right, well, I can't see. They don't have a dream.
No.
And every child needs a dream. You need a dream. And it's just heartbreaking to think that there's children who don't see that future of wonder, of what could I achieve? And, I just think just thinking that there's a world of opportunity out there for them, no matter where they come from, we can show them how they can get there. I just think that is huge for them. And if they don't see that, then they will feel that there's no one there helping them and really that society's been cruel to them. They'll feel angry. And people say to me, what's the ambition for Children's University? And for me, it's an impact in many years' time, the next generation as well. It's those children when they grow up, if they potentially have their own children, what their messages are they going to give them? They're going to have seen more of the world, and they will want that for their own children. So then we're breaking that cycle of families who are just staying in the same area and not understanding that there's more that they can achieve.
I think there's something interesting there as well, because so often we hear parents say, I want my child to have the things that I didn't have. That's a narrative you hear quite a lot. But I would say that so often those parents don't know what they didn't have because they didn't have it. So they know I want better for my child's life. I want them to have more things, see more things, do more things, whatever. But they almost can't guide them in that direction because they don't really know what those things are or how you would even get to those things because they didn't get that direction. So, you have to intervene at some point, don't you, to kind of break that cycle, I guess. Yeah,
you do. And you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And if you've not been aware that you've missed it. And, with the likes of social media and things like that, people, I think, are becoming more aware of things that maybe other people have that they don't.
Yeah.
Whereas, back before then, you maybe just weren't aware.
Yeah.
But I think as well, it's there's so many barriers that people don't appreciate. So it could be, there's been times that we've been able to give free theatre tickets to families, and the uptake can be quite low because to go to a theatre for the very first time when you've never stepped foot in a theatre, as for the parents even, it's a really intimidating thing. And, I think just even things like that, it's, some of them will go, but some of them it's just, if there's someone who can go with them, then they're happier to go. But I just think it's those things that can be a really big deal and really intimidating.
Do you know what I think the elephant in the room there is, though? Is like, for me, I agree with you. I absolutely agree. And I think the elephant in the room is that the parents feel less than. So they think the theatre is posh, it costs money, it's what nice people go to, and it's not for the likes of us. Do you know what I mean? And so the idea of going there and being amongst these, what they expect to be there, is kind of intimidating because they feel inferior almost, and they're undeserving or they shouldn't be there. And of course, that feeling is then a knock-on effect to the child because no, this isn't what we do. That's for those people over there, and we've got to break that, haven't we? We've got to break that. Like everybody's worth equally, nobody's less than the other. Yeah.
And I think like the likes of when we were City of Culture and stuff, I think it was great that more people around, sort of the estates and things were coming to take part in cultural activities. And I think Hull does culture really well.
Yeah.
I do think more can be done. In certain areas of Hull to try and encourage people to take part in cultural activities and the arts and things like that. Because sometimes there are children who have amazing talents and they're recognised, but then it's those next steps of what do they do with those talents?
Yeah. There's I have a nephew, he's 5, he's just turned 5. He's the sweetest little boy. He's the happiest little kid you'll ever see, just always smiling. But he's obsessed with performing. I don't know how he got to that, and I'm a musician, so I love it. I love to see that. But we built him a stage in the garden. He's got microphones, light, and he puts on shows. And he says, right, and he literally goes through the whole process of setting up chairs, taking tickets, like this whole theatre production. He's never been to a theatre, so it's only what he's kind of seen, And we talk about it all the time. I talk to my parents and his parents about it, and I say, we've got to nurture this as much as possible. You can't let that go and he's good at it. He's incredibly talented. It's like you must nurture that, because that'll slip away over time if he feels like he can't do anything with this. He's got no outlet to use that talent, or nobody really cares about that talent. Then he's going to lose enthusiasm for it. And then what? And then where does he go? He's lost his opportunity. So there needs to be more opportunities there. And the point of that story was when we started looking for, say, like performing arts schools and things like that to send him to, the options were actually quite slim, what was available, and quite expensive. Now, if you're a poorer family and you might recognise the talent of, your child's good at dance or something like that, but the option of putting them in a dance class just seems, we just don't have the money. Mm-hmm. We can't do it. Or, it's on the other side of town. We don't drive. We can't, it's 3 buses. How do you tackle that? How do you address some of those things? Because they seem like silly things, silly barriers to have in place, don't they?
Yeah.
How do you address it? How do you deal with things like that?
I think, there are bursaries available for some of the performing arts schools, but then even knowing about those bursaries, you only know what you know. But then the barrier is if a child then gets a bursary, it's then transporting them sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes it could be a half an hour taxi ride, to where they need to be, and the families just can't afford it. So I think that there's more that can be done. I don't know the answer.
I guess the reason I'm asking it is because obviously the work that you guys do is providing those experiences.
Yes.
So, and that's wonderful. It's great. Your charity just does amazing things, and I'm so pleased that it exists. But if you're reliant on charities like yours to be able to provide all these opportunities to everyone, and it's not something that's running through the school system, it's not something that's running through the estates, those opportunities out there, those local clubs, those local mentors, whatever that might be, youth clubs or something, but signposting places, then you're doing great work, but there's only so much you can do, to fix the problem. So can you have an influence as a charity on wider opportunities, to join partners with other people to help enhance those opportunities, do you think?
Yes, and we were very keen to work with other organisations and to signpost people to them, because there are so many charities in our city doing amazing work, so many amazing organisations, and we can't do everything, and there's people doing this work, so we do signpost families and children, and because we're working with over 50 of the 71 primary schools in Hull, we have done for many years, we can contact those schools so they can pass on the opportunities as well. And for people who don't know about our charity, the majority of our experiences, they take place during school day, where we're taking full classes of children out of the school. So for the majority of our experiences, we don't involve parents. We take the children when they're in school and we bring their teachers with them. And we specifically target the schools that are in the most disadvantaged areas of Hull and the East Riding, because we know that the majority of those children won't have the experiences that children have in the more affluent areas. And the experiences that we do, I think some people might look at us and think it's just a trip. It's just a trip. But if you just put on trips for children, it's so much more than that. And we always say our nickname as our charity is Hey See You, Hull and East Yorkshire Children's University, and we say that we Hey See Youify it. We add sparkle. So it's really important that we're adding some value to the experiences we're running, that it's not just something that a school can do themselves, because schools are amazing and schools, they're working so hard and they're working with such small budgets to be able to do these things. Yeah. But for us, we can provide those experiences for a lot of the time completely free of charge. And the schools come on the experiences with us, and it's the focus of those experiences is more about future aspiration always. Yes, they're doing lots of learning and we link it to the curriculum, but it's more about nurturing those individual talents that the children might have never discovered. So for instance, when we go to London, yes, we do the train and we do the usual tourist things, but when we go to Parliament and we have tours around Parliament and do workshops, it's very much a focus of, right, if you want to make a change, you could be an MP, and this is how you can do it, and this is how laws are made in the country. And when we go to, we do sleepovers in London. One of them's sleeping on the HMS Belfast, and the other one is sleeping in the Natural History Museum. But when we do things like that, sometimes we go to the West End, which, you know, for children who've never even been to Panto, it's amazing. But even when we're there, we're saying, right, you could actually perform in the West End if you wanted to, and this, you know, or you could work in the theatre. And so we're always talking about that, always about opportunities. You know, you could live in London, you could get a job in London and commute to London. There's people who are working in London who are from Hull, you know, who still live in Hull. So it's showing them that, you know, even though it seems so far away, it's accessible for them. And that's why, that's the kind of little bit of magic that we sprinkle on those things. It's all about dreams, igniting dreams, and showing them that of how they can achieve those dreams.
Yeah, and I really love the tactile experience of it. And you touched upon it earlier on when you were saying about the seaside. And it's you can talk about sand and you can talk about sea, but there's nothing quite like feeling it between your toes. And that's a very different thing.
Yes.
And the sounds and the smells of London and the noise of the tube and the lights in the West End. You know, I mean, even in Hull, you know, I remember growing up, but even now that parents take their children to Hull Fair, and they talk about taking them in the evening so they can see the lights, you know, because it's magical. It's just, it's so mind-blowing, isn't it, for a young mind to see this stuff. It's so exciting. And I think there's a difference between, the reason I like what you guys do is there's a difference between saying to people, you could do this, and actually showing them and saying, look, and here it is. Look, this is what it looks like. This is how you would do it. You know, you could be here. This could be your job. You could speak to this person. Look, this person does this job. Speak to them. You know, and you make those, connect the dots.
Yes.
And I think you need that. You really need that tactile kind of connection, which is so important. What I find really interesting is that there is more and more opportunity for, particularly for those really senior roles. You talked about Westminster there in politics. And I think when we start to see people in higher positions, I'm thinking of people like Angela Rayner recently, you know, from a deprived background, a young mum, you know, the sort of people we're talking about, you wouldn't really associate with being in high office in Parliament, the Deputy Prime Minister.
Yeah.
And there she is. And it's possible. And she's worked her way up. And what a wonderful thing to showcase to young people. So that it is possible for people to do it. It's just that they need to believe it's possible.
They do, yeah. And one of our big success stories, we've actually got a little animation about it on our website. And it was a young girl called Emily, and she had a horrendous childhood. She suffered an abusive childhood, but she was also one of those children who had never really been into Hull City Centre, had never really seen anything, but she was told that she would never achieve anything, and she really believed it. And when she was in year 6, she was taken out of those horrible circumstances that she was in. And in the same year, she came to London with us on a school trip. And it was the first time she'd been on a train, first time she'd left Hull, first time she'd seen the Humber Bridge going past it. And she came to Parliament with us. And she says that moment of being in Parliament just was like a light bulb moment of, wow, this is somewhere, like, she was a child who, you know, was passionate about things and wanted to make a difference. And she thought, I could actually do this. I could come here. I'm listening to these people and thinking, why couldn't that be me? And she said that it just spurred her on. So when she came back to school, she was saying, if I want to go into politics, what do I need to do, miss? And you know, she was talking about it all the time. And when we actually were told this story, we'd met Emily at a college, and she'd just been offered an unconditional offer to study politics at Hull Uni.
Gosh.
And since then, she's graduated. And she ran as a local councillor. She did some work experience in Parliament as well with Alan Johnson when he was there at the time. And, you know, she's now decided she'd like to study law as well. So, I mean, she's just amazing. But she truly believed that she could do that, and she still could, you know. I believe that she will end up in Parliament. But she's someone who is from Greatfield Estate in Hull, you know, who has then gone on to do those things. And she says it was that one day. And so, you know, even though, yes, I am trying to move to a model where children are having multiple experiences a year with us, and some of them are. Even just one experience of something of that magnitude, of just that, wow, there is a world out there that I can, finding that thing that lights that fire in you.
Yeah.
That is something that's so important for children. And then she was lucky enough to have teachers in her school who could then say to her, point her in the right direction of what she needed to do to achieve those dreams. But she's just amazing. And we know that there's lots of other children out there who've had the same experiences as well, who then, because of one day, have it's changed their whole outlook on life.
Yeah, it's bringing it to life, isn't it? And that's the thing. And it's that, as you say, it's that one click moment, that moment where I always think so many things seem so out of reach because we see them through screens fundamentally. So for young people, they see it on the TV or they see it on their phones or on YouTube or whatever. But it's almost, that's fantasy world. It looks like fantasy world. It's not us. It's just that's over there. And what I like about what you guys are doing is you're saying it's not fantasy. It's real. Look, you can touch it. You can feel it. You can smell it. It's here. Yeah, of course you can do it. Let's go do it, and that's amazing. And I just think there needs to be so much more of that for so many more people, as much as we can deliver. And I guess you need all the support you can get, really, because you are a charity.
Yes.
And you're trying to do all this stuff for all these young people essentially for free. You're giving it to them for free, which means that you need help from whoever can help you. I presume you work a lot with the business community, and that's a nice way to kind of drive that forward. Do the businesses play a vital role in how the charity performs?
Huge role. We've been so lucky. So I've been at the charity now 11 years. 11 years this month.
And you're recently new CEO, right?
Yes, yeah. So I was appointed CEO a year ago.
Yeah.
So it's my 11th year at the charity. And just over these 11 years, the support of the business community has just been amazing. We've worked hard to build relationships, but that's what I love about the business community in Hull. It's so collaborative, and people will always introduce you to somebody, and so something that we think is a real USP of our charity is that we can take children into businesses, and they have a day in their life. And this is at primary school. Yeah. We're not talking secondary school, which a lot of businesses do.
Yeah.
The reason that we are so passionate about it being in primary school is that, we have touched on this, but when children reach secondary school, when they're that age, they've already kind of discounted a lot of careers, and they kind of think,
become a bit jaded, maybe.
And that's they know what they kind of have their beliefs about what they're good at and what they're not good at. And sometimes it's just because they've not seen it. I mean, when I was when I was going into secondary school, during my primary years, I didn't know that a woman could be an engineer, really. Yeah. That wasn't really on my radar. It's just you think of, if you asked a child to draw an engineer, they'd draw a man.
Yeah.
And I always think about, if I'd have seen things like that, women in certain roles, I would have then had more of an understanding that maybe that could have been something for me, and who knows, what I would have then, the choices I would have made. But I think gender stereotypes in particular, that you see children, they're present in play as young as, 4 years old. Already children are starting to make their minds up about what is maybe a boy's job, what is a girl's job.
Sure.
And then aspirations, proper, not just fantasy aspirations, proper aspirations, sort of 8, 9 years old children are showing that's when they're making those decisions already. So by the time they're 11, 12 years old, when they're leaving primary school to go into secondary school, you've kind of lost them. And yes, children you'll get more sort of meat on the bones of the things that they'd like to do in secondary school. And secondary schools are great at careers. But why are we not doing more at primary school level? And so we're working with the business community, and we call it Hey See You in the Future, because we hope that we will see them in the future.
Yeah.
And that's the dream, that we take a class of children to a business, and they have this amazing day and meet all these people. And then I hope that in the future, they'll then turn up for an interview and say, I've come back after all these years, after that one day at your business, and I'd like to work for you. Because it's about those businesses, they're recruiting from the local community, from the next generation, and the children will start to so we always ask at the end of the day, how many of you do you think would like to come and work here when you grow up? And so many hands go up, and it's not just about working there. It's about just exposing them to different sectors. So, for instance, we do run a hotel for the day, where they take over the Hilton, and the children, they're meeting people from all the different roles, but they're also having a go and doing the jobs as well. We recently did a Humberside Airport experience, but it's not just going to the airport and seeing the planes, which is amazing, but it's understanding all the different jobs that are there. It's not, you don't just have to be a pilot, and which is what really the only one they think of, or maybe cabin crew. I mean, and a lot of the children, they went on the plane, first time they've ever set foot on a plane, seeing a plane in real life. But even just going to the more local businesses as well, the businesses that open the doors. We've got we take children to the likes of Geocom, and we ask for children to write feedback on feedback forms at the end of these business trips. And the amount of times that you see a child write, "This has been the best day of my life." It's not just a one-off. We get that comment a lot. And it's because it truly is like that. It's because it's just lit up just a whole world of opportunity for them. And the children have had fun. We make it fun. We make it so they're learning, but we make it very fun and hands-on. So they've had great fun. But the children also write, "It's been great to meet so many people." It just means so much to them. And, you just see that they're just so excited that they could actually go and work there. And that is something that's so valuable. So, we've got 26 corporate partners now who open their doors to our children, and they support us as well as partners financially, which keeps us going, know. And we've gone from 11 years ago when I started, we were only working with 1,800 children. Now, like I say, 13,000 children a year. And without that support that we've had over the years, we wouldn't have been able to reach that many children. And, we're talking 1 in 3 children in our city is growing up in poverty. There's more to be done. There's more children to reach. So, that support is so vital to us.
And I think it's so important because it's a cliche line, but these children are the future. They are the next generation. They are the future employee of your business, or they are the future business owner. They're the future employer. They're the future inventor. They're in future. I mean, they're going to drive whatever's coming next, and so you have to nurture that. And I guess businesses have such a vital role in that. One, because financially, obviously, they can make things happen and sponsor the charity and stuff, which is great because you need money to make things happen, and that's a realism. But they're not just investing, as you say, in an experience or giving someone a day out. They're investing in a life, in aspiration, in what might potentially be coming to work at their place, or working in their sector, or inventing the machine that they use. It is the next wave, isn't it? And I think because schools naturally have their own influence, because we all have to go to school, it's a mandatory thing, so that's part of it. And you have parenting, and that's a mandatory thing because you're part of a family life. But because the businesses aren't essentially a mandatory connection to the children, you kind of need them to kind of put their foot in a way, and sort of show and say, look, this is what we do, and this is possible, and here's why it works the way it does, and here's why what you do, because you're so talented in this area, such and such, you'd be useful here. You could do something great here. You kind of need to make that connection, don't you, and break those kind of walls, I guess.
You do, and the schools are doing amazing things, but quite a lot of the time the schools don't have links with businesses, and they're trying to enhance their kind of teachings around careers and things like that. And I think for us to be able to then facilitate that, and we design the experiences ourselves with the businesses, we write them. The majority of our staff are ex-teachers, so we're experienced in that, and it gives them something extra. The impact that has, and for businesses to then contribute to their, it's their local community, they really will have an impact, and the children will remember it. If you think back to school trips that you have, you remember them, especially if it's something that's really unique. Imagine being 10 years old
Yeah.
and going and we go to the BBC and, we do like a Look North programme or going and sitting with pilots on a plane and learning, hearing about those pilots, about how they got their jobs and what they do and stuff. You'll always remember it. It'll stick with you.
Yeah. I also think on the flip side as well, you will always remember when you haven't been able to do something. Mm-hmm. I remember being at school and there was school trips where they'd go away camping. You remember Eden Camp and things like that? And we didn't have the money, so I didn't get to go. And the school just didn't have the budget to sponsor it. And there's a real, you feel that shame. It's almost like a shame element as a child because your peers are going away and you can't go. And I don't think any child should feel that. I don't think that because immediately you're making them feel less than before they've even grown up to even understand what less than means, And I think they need those experiences at whatever cost it needs to happen because it's going to shape what they become. Not just, I think, in their careers, but in their values, in their personality, their identity, what they believe, how good a person they are, how they help others, how they, all of these factors. Mm-hmm. It's so huge, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And I think we have to make those connections so much more. Slightly tinging onto the political side, we've got a new government in. Is there anything you'd like to see at a national level, from a government level, that would help kind of what it is that you're doing as a charity? Is there something you'd like to see more of in terms of maybe funding in certain areas or legislation or something that would help young people, do you think?
I think a focus on child poverty, putting that at the centre, putting children at the centre of their plans. And I think the charity sector as well, recognising the contribution that we're making. In an ideal world, charities wouldn't exist, because we're needed. Yeah. And I think for them to put more funding into the charity sector and to help us, because we're doing amazing things and we're needed. And I think that's something I'd like to see. We have a children's board that we've recently put together in the last couple of years. And these are children who have, they nominated themselves to do it and they put themselves forward. And they're from several schools in the city, and they are the voice. They are the voice. They test out our experiences, but they also, we give them challenges. For instance, we have an event called the Kids Say Thanks, where we want our amazing supporters, our business supporters, to hear it from the children of the difference they've made, because these children are from the schools we're working with, have been on the experiences. But these children have been kind of, we've given them these opportunities and we've nurtured them. They've been doing podcasts as well, which they've been great at. But I would like, my aim for next year is to try and get them an audience with the Prime Minister.
Wow.
That's what I would like. And I will be, they're going to write a letter to him. Spoiler alert, but they will be. And I am determined to get those children in front of the Prime Minister, because, their voices are so important. They're children of the North, children from Hull. And for him, if he could give that time to listen to them, then I think that would just be amazing. And they can tell him what he needs to do. Yeah.
And I believe you'll do it. I believe you'll do it because, you are determined, Rose. We all know you're determined and you're passionate about what you do. And the charity just does such wonderful work. What's nice about the charity, for all charities, because all charities are amazing because, as you say, they exist because they recognise a problem and they're trying to deal with it. And sometimes, sadly, I feel like charities are sometimes out of sight, out of mind, because it's like, well, they're there, they're doing that thing, and we just accept that happens. But it's like, well, hang on a minute, they are a charity. Like, if you want them to do what they're doing, then you're going to have to help them, because how else are they going to do it? And it shouldn't just be an expectation that nice people come together to make things happen. Mm-hmm. You are an organisation that's driving with a mission and a drive to make good things happen for the next generation. That has to be recognised. And I agree, the people in senior leadership, the Prime Minister at the top, should be completely aware of this and sort of saying, right, well, what can I do? I'm the man with the power here. What do you need from me? Mm-hmm. You need that conversation. And there's nothing more powerful than coming from a kid, I guess. Exactly,
that the children are the voice. But I think that listening to the charity sector, we're the ones on the ground. We're working with our beneficiaries. We're seeing day to day what is needed. And I think for the government to really listen to us and to see, to not just to, look at stats and things, actually listen to the stories of what the people need. I think that'll be something that I would like to see. But yeah, coming from our children, they're just incredible. It just makes me feel so optimistic for the future when I see those children, because they are just, for their ages, are just unbelievable. And I know each and every one of them are just going to achieve amazing things. So we're very, very lucky to have them as representatives as our children's board. And so watch this space to see if they get a response from him.
I hope they do. Well, keep us posted, because I would love to know that, but I'm sure they will. Okay, so just bringing it to a close, how can people be involved with you? Who do you want to hear from? What can people do to help you drive your mission?
I think firstly, if people have felt like they'd like to volunteer, then that's something that we're always open to volunteers. Our volunteering programme is very flexible. So we have a platform that people sign up for. They get then a calendar of things that are happening. And like I say, we're doing 400 experiences a year. Sometimes there's multiple a day going on.
Lot.
Yeah, considering it's just term time for those schools experiences as well. So people can sign up, but it could be that you do just a couple a year, or you could sign up to one a week if you can commit that time. It's very flexible. Most of them are during the school day as well, which is good for people, because most of the time you're done by 3:00. For the further afield ones like London, obviously they take a bit more time, but you can build up to those. So if people would like to do that, you can go on our website, get involved, and then volunteer. And then you can sign up that way. We sort the training, DBS check, things like that. But also, if people would like to support us in a way that, you can support us financially. If you're a business, we'd love to hear from you, because we're very, very, we're passionate about making it so it's a real partnership. With those businesses. It's not just we're going to have a photo with a check and then you never hear from us again. We work really closely with our partners. Like I said, we bring the children in, but also they can come on the experiences. So the funding that they give us will then pay for us to be able to deliver these experiences, and they can see that firsthand. They can see exactly where that money's been spent, and see, when you see just those children's faces light up, and they see that they've made that happen. It's just amazing for them. And we're very lucky that, the majority of our partners have been with us a really long time because they see the value. So, we would love to hear from more businesses if they're interested in partnering with us. And obviously, if people are listening to this and they feel like they'd like to support, they can always make a donation on our website as well, because it honestly will make a huge difference to the children and what we're able to do. And there are more children we need to reach.
I think it's a lovely, it's everything you've just said wraps it up nicely. What you're doing is wonderful. And for people listening, you're changing lives. It's what you're doing. It's not just a trip. It's not just an experience. It's a revelation. It's a life-changing moment. And you're playing your part in that. And I think we all need to play our part in that in some way, whether you're a business, whether you're in school, whether you're a parent. We all recognise that there's things that need to be done. And there's organisations like Hull and East Yorkshire Children's Uni that exist to try and help make this happen. And any way that anyone can get involved in that is just beneficial, isn't it? It's going to be good for the future. So that's wonderful. What's the website?
It's it's hullchildrensuniversity.com.
hullchildrensuniversity.com. Go check out the website. Go check out all the wonderful work that they're doing. Try and get involved if you can be involved. If you're a business owner, get in contact. If you're a parent, if you're a volunteer, whatever, contact them and change some lives, because it's just wonderful. Rose, James, thanks so much for being on the podcast. It's been wonderful.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.